Hello everyone, my name is Nick Picard and I'm recording a deck tech for the Tolarian Academy combo deck for the Canadian Highlander format. So this is a deck tech for a dedicated combo deck with some small control elements. The format is a Canadian Highlander format. It's got some similarities to Australian Highlander and German Highlander played in Europe. You can find out more information about the format at canadianhighlander.wordpress.com. So first of all, why would you play Academy? The format has a lot of really consistent decks in it. You can play any number of aggro decks or mid-range decks or control decks that have really redundant strategies. Many interchangeable parts that all basically do the same thing, a ton of counter spells that all do the same thing, or a ton of one-drop creatures that all get in for a bunch of damage. But Academy gives you a few advantages. First of all, it can be built several different ways to suit the metagame, to tailor to beat certain matchups. That's really awesome, and also it has a lot of explosive plays. It's fun to play. It's also a deck with a really high skill cap, so if you're willing to dedicate yourself to learn how to play the deck, it'll reward you with a lot of power. It's also resilient as far as combo decks go, because it has both A plus B combos and density combos built into the deck. A quick explanation is that an A plus B combo requires, usually it's exactly 2 parts, and then there is some sort of combo that wins you the game, either infinite or very powerful interaction. And it's just a matter of getting those 2 parts on the board at the same time, or casting both of those spells, something like that. So Reanimator is a classic A plus B combo. You need a big creature in your graveyard, and then you also need a way to get it back. Flash Hulk is another A plus B combo. A density combo is a little more amorphous. You need a bunch of something, and then your deck kind of does the engine thing. So eggs is an example historically of a density combo in Magic. You need a bunch of eggs in play, sacrifice them, cast Second Sunrise, and then your deck kind of does a thing. And obviously the Perfect Storm is the ultimate density combo deck. It relies on playing lots of rituals, generating a lot of mana, upping your storm count, and eventually casting Tendrils of Agony. Academy has both aspects of it. The basic deck breakdown of Academy deck in Highlander is around 35 mana producing lands. It usually also plays Maze of Ith. Around, a dozen or more mana rocks and a few Moxen. Obviously, you can't afford, because of the point system in Canadian Highlander, you can't afford to play too many real Moxen. Usually I play just one Sapphire. But you definitely want to play Mox Opal, and then it's up to you if you want to play Chrome Mox or Mox Diamond. Usually there's around 10 tutors, so 4 or 5 of these are going to find Academy. That's one of the big advantages to playing green in Academy. Green gives you Crop Rotation, Sylvan Scrying, and Wargate that all find Tolarian Academy. If you don't play green, you're limited to Tolaria West and Expedition map. And then you're going to want to play around 15 card draw spells or artifacts that draw cards like Coercive Portal or Memory Jar. And that's going to give you something to do with all your mana. You're going to actually draw a bunch of cards with all that mana. Then you're going to want some Wraths, counterspells, and hand attack. You don't want to put too many in, or it sacrifices the integrity of the density combo aspect of the deck. At that point, you might as well not be playing Tolarian Academy and just play an A plus B combo deck. And then, of course, you need some combos to actually finish the game. Generating a lot of mana and drawing your deck is really fun, but you got to do something with it. You're going to want something that is an instant kill. Here's a typical play sequence. On turn 1 and turn 2, you're going to drop around 3 mana rocks. Maybe one will be a Mox, and you'll have 2 traditional mana rocks. Maybe you're lucky enough to get something like Thran Dynamo that's like a super mana rock. On turn 3, ideally you're going to search for Academy and play it. And as that's your 3rd land drop, now you've got the 3 mana rocks you played over the first 2 turns. Academy is going to instantly tap for 3 mana. So this will allow you to either cast Thirst for Knowledge or some other card draw spell. If you're lucky enough to have played an artifact land on turn 1 or turn 2, you'll even have 4 mana for Fact or Fiction. Or maybe you're a little bit tight on mana get this game. Maybe you only had 2 mana rocks. Maybe you're going to use Tolarian Academy now to cast Mana Drain on your opponent's turn. That's going to give you a big boost for turn 4. Turn 4 is the setup for the combo. This is like in volleyball, tossing the ball into the air. Spike's coming down soon. So this could be one of several different things. You could be casting Memory Jar, so it's a draw 7 that allows you to cast it the turn before, which is really helpful. And it's an artifact, so it's going to add mana to your Tolarian Academy. Or turn 4, the setup could be just casting another card draw spell and really fill up your hand. It could be a powerful card draw spell like Sphinx's Revelation that stalls you a little bit for time. Or you could be playing a Planeswalker like Jace the Mind Sculptor. That gives them a tough decision as to whether give you a Brainstorm and have to attack Jace, or give you 2 Brainstorms, which gives you way more likely for a turn 5 comboing out. Now, turn 5 really depends. This is the critical turning point of the game. There's the power play. You spike the volleyball. You do something like draw a million cards, or make them discard their hand, or like win the game on the spot with an A+B combo. Or you let the volleyball fall to the ground and like totally throw them off. So here you might dump your hand and then just cast Ensnaring Bridge. Or you might pass and make them worry that you have a counterspell. And it could be you have Mystic Confluence or Cryptic Command. There's some really strong counterspells that actually completely throw off their game plan. Now, depending on which one you do, really depends on what they're doing on their board. You have to react to them. You have to look, what turn are they planning to kill me? A control deck, you might want to bait out their counterspells start out with some weaker card like Coercive Portal, and then work your way up to Tezzeret the Seeker. Or you might start with some weaker card draw spells, Frantic Search, and then work your way up to Fact or Fiction, and then eventually to Blue Sun Zenith. You have a lot more density of must-counter spells in your deck than the typical control deck has counter spells. So that's a really, really viable plan. If they're playing aggro, you're going to need to find some way to deal with their creatures super fast, be it a Wrath or a Wormcoil Engine or something else that has board presence. So that's going to need a power play, if you can't kill them right away, of course. Here's the 4 main A+B combos in the deck. Helm Obedience, Rest in Peace is 7 mana for an instant kill. Goblin Charbelcher Mana Severance is 9 mana for an instant kill. Painter's Servant Grindstone is only 6, but it's vulnerable to a removal spell for a creature. And Thopter's Sword is 5 mana to get you going with a 2/3 blocker and gaining a life. That's the critical number of mana there. And it is obviously not an instant kill, but it's cheaper than all the rest. You can actually get it online, as early as turn 2, really. And it's much easier to find. You can tutor for either half with Muddle the Mixture, and Sword of the Meek can be sacrificed to transmute artifact. It's just way, way more flexible than all the other ones. And so it's definitely worth inclusion in the deck. Thopter Sword, I should quickly mention, has a great synergy that the Thopter tokens that it creates are all artifacts. So when you've got a Tolarian Academy on the board, what you usually end up doing is tapping all your other mana sources other than Academy to produce Thopters. And then once those Thopters have been created, then you tap Academy, and it gets to count all those Thopters in addition to all your other artifacts. And then you make a bunch of Thopters with Academy. So it is a really good synergy there. So the density combo is a little bit harder to wrap your head around, and this is what scares some people off the deck. There's usually this critical turn. It might be turn 5 if you're trying to pull the trigger as fast as you can, but it's often you stall a little bit, throw them off with a Duress or a Mind Twist or even a Balance, and then you get to turn 7 or so, and there's this critical turn where you don't have an A+B combo, or you just have one half and you don't have a tutor, and you kind of have to do something because they're either completely gaining control, they've sculpted a wonderful hand, or else they're one turn away from killing you on the board. Got to do something. So one version of the density combo looks like floating 12 mana or so, and then casting Upheaval, and then you can recast all your mana rocks. And so ideally at that point you have 5 mana and maybe even a Planeswalker, and they have nothing, and they're going to have to play a land and discard down to 7 on their turn. That's a really strong scenario. You have enough density in your deck of high quality cards that you are going to draw out of that scenario. Then there's the Memory Jar and Time Spiral in this category of the draw 7 density combo play. So a typical scenario here will be either you're facing an aggro deck or a control deck that's tapped out, and you're really excited here. So you get to either crack your Memory Jar or cast a Time Spiral, ideally with Tolarian Academy, so it's actually generating mana. And then you have to kind of just fly by the seat of your pants, use what you've drawn, and try to eventually generate more mana by finding more untapping spells and apply that into an A plus B combo win. In the worst case scenario, you apply that into something like Mind Twist their entire hand and have a moat and a planeswalker on the battlefield, or bounce so that you make them sacrifice all their creatures and discard their entire hand. Often balance is just the density combo. It's just casting balance because you've dumped your entire hand and you have no creatures on the board and you have only 2 lands in play. And so they have to go down to 2 lands and in top deck mode. For many, many decks, that's a wreck. They're absolutely destroyed in that scenario. They can't function at all. For our deck, having 2 lands, no cards in hand, and no creatures on the board is an ideal scenario, because that actually means we probably have 6 or 7 mana, and we're in top deck mode. That's wonderful. We've got so many planeswalkers and card draw spells that rely on us having lots of mana. We're just going to cast them right off the top of our deck. And then there's one that's hard to see, that's often neglected. I've actually had this happen multiple times in tournament, that I've got Tezzeret, Agent of Bolas with I just cast him and tick him up once, and he's immediately at ultimate, and they've taken a couple damage from their own lands. They're down at 16. If you have 8 artifacts and you tick up Tezzeret, Agent of Bolas, that's a threaten to kill with the ultimate the very next turn. So look for those in the deck. I'm not going to go through all of them in this video, but there's a lot of scenarios where if you've got 5 artifacts on the board, 6 artifacts on the board, you can actually just cast 1 spell on turn 7 and turn that into a win. Often it ends up being a 10-minute turn. You've got to play fast. You've got to know the deck really well, and there's no substitute for that but practice. I'm going to go over a couple mulligans. Here's a sample hand. I've given them all nicknames here. This is the Golden Egg. This is just the kind of hand that you're just absolutely hoping to draw every time. The sequencing here is amazing. Turn 1, Vault of Whispers, Sensei's Top, Mox Opal, and then you get to top. Turn 2, you play your Trop and Talisman of Progress, and now you get to crop rotation for Tolarian Academy, and you've got Pour Over the Pages, which is actually going to generate mana now. So you've got a super fast ramp plan. You've got some filtering with Sensei's Top. You always love to top and then have 1 draw step and then shuffle your deck after that, and you've got that with crop rotation. So you're only drawing the best of the top 3 cards of your deck, and you're immediately shuffling the next 2 away. You've got a plan to draw into cards, gain card advantage, and dig deeper into your deck. You're digging 8 deep in the first 2 turns, so that's really good. This one I would call the Uncertain Escalator. So we obviously have a great ramp plan. It's even better than the other one because we have a turn 1 Jeweled Amulet off of a Seat of the Synod, and then we have a turn 2 Tolarian Academy, Simic Signet, Ponder. Just the insanity goes off the charts because you've got a Deserted Temple to untap your Tolarian Academy. Now it feels like the instinct is that you've got way too much ramp and not enough to do with it. The only thing that's not mana producer is Ponder here, but this is the kind of escalator that lands in combo land, so you should keep this hand, believe it or not. This deck rewards keeping hands that just have 1 draw spell. So here's an all elbows hand. This has lots of powerful individual parts. You can cast anything in here, but you've got a lot of blue sources. You'll be able to cast a counterspell. Oh, look, you can already cast a Frantic Search with the lands you've got. Oh, Tezzeret's one of our best planeswalkers. We only need 1 more mana of any color to cast it. Same with Goblin Charbelcher. It's a removal spell and it's half a combo. But just having lands and spells is not nearly enough for this deck. We're going to mulligan it because it's all about being an explosive combo deck. It's all about doing the crazy thing, doing something completely broken and unfair. And this hand not only doesn't have a promise of that, it's promising that you're going to just muddle through the game and just kind of try and be fair and try to find the other half of my combo. No, we're not going to try to find it. We're going to just totally obliterate the deck. We're going to draw 30 cards in a turn, and we're definitely going to find the second half of that combo. Having half of an A plus B in your hand is just a wasted card. Don't even look at the Charbelcher. And I call this hand the control deck. I want to have an example of a hand that I would absolutely keep if I were playing a different deck. If I were playing Esper Control, this is a great hand. Look at this. We've got Counterspell. All we need is one more land to cast Fact or Fiction or Supreme Verdict. We've got enough mana for either of them. We've got a long-term plan for Sphinx's Revelation. But that's the kind of deck that knows that it's going to draw into more land, for example. That kind of deck is probably playing like 7 or 8 more lands than we are. It's also the kind of deck that that's able to grind out a win, and we're not able to grind out a win. We need to have the win, like at least half of it already in our open hand, which would be like either the ramp half or the unfair card like Balance already in our opening hand. So this is actually like a mulligan, even though it's like on paper it's a powerful hand for many decks. Quickly before I go on and go over some metagame considerations. So the deck that I've got in the link for the video is pretty well rounded, but with a nod towards combo. If you're expecting combo, go with the right half here. I've got most of those cards in my deck right now. You might even want to put more counterspells in there. You might want to put in more disruption. Consider Inquisition of Kozilek. Consider Shadow of Doubt. If you're expecting an aggro metagame, you might have to completely rejigger your points list to fit Tinker in there. Tinker for Sphinx of the Steel Wind is an amazing plan against aggro. If they're playing lots of 2-mana 3/3s, you got some Watchwolf type aggro decks or something, play Baleful Strix. It's a great blocker. It's an artifact, so it actually accelerates you. Timely Reinforcements is also great against goblins and burn. It slows them down long enough to find moat in the case of goblins, or batter skull in the case of burn, and those are critical targets to search for. So hopefully that helps. If you're playing against a field full of tempo, my recommendation, frankly, is to not play Academy. But if all you have to deal with is combo, aggro, mid-range, and control, then I think Academy is a fantastic deck choice for you. So I hope you agree, and I hope you have fun with this deck. I hope this video is helpful to you. Chat about it in the comments, ask me some questions, or post in the Canadian Highlander Facebook group. And if you know a lot about a certain deck, make a video. Tell us about it. Thanks for listening, everyone.